The classical Mongolian script, also known as Hudam Mongol Bishagt, was the first writing system created specifically for the Mongolian language, and was the most successful until the introduction of Cyrillic in 1946. Derived from Sogdian, Mongolian is a true alphabet, with separate letters for consonants and vowels. The Mongolian script has been adapted to write languages such as Oirat and Manchu. Alphabets based on this classical vertical script are used in Inner Mongolia and other parts of China to this day to write Mongolian, Xiban. Experimentally, Evenki. History. The Mongolian vertical script developed as an adaptation of the Sogdian to the Mongolian language. From the 7th and 8th to the 15th and 16th centuries, the Mongolian language separated into southern, eastern and western dialects. The principal monuments of the Middle Period are, in the Eastern dialect, the famous Secret History of the Mongols, monuments in the square script, materials of the Chinese Mongolian glossary of the 14th century, and materials of the Mongolian language of the Middle Period in Chinese transcription, etc. In the Western dialect, materials of the Arab Mongolian and Persian Mongolian dictionaries, Mongolian texts in Arabic transcription, etc. The main features of the period are that the vowels I and I had lost their phonemic significance, creating the I phoneme, into vocal consonants gamma per gram. B, W had disappeared and the preliminary process of the formation of Mongolian long vowels had begun. The initial H was preserved in many words. Grammatical categories were partially absent, etc. The development over this period explains why Mongolian script looks like a vertical Arabic script. Eventually, minor concessions were made to the differences between the Ukhr and Mongol languages. In the 17th and 18th centuries, smoother and more angular versions of Zadi became associated with D and T, respectively. And in the 19th century, the Manchu hooked yud was adopted for initial J. Zain was dropped as it was redundant for S. Various schools of orthography, some using diacritics, were developed to avoid ambiguity. Mongolian is written vertically. The Ukhr script and its descendants, Mongolian, Oirat, Clear, Manchu, and Buryat, are the only vertical scripts written from left to right. This developed because the Uyghurs rotated their Sogdian-derived script, originally written right to left, 90 degrees counterclockwise to emulate Chinese writing, but without changing the relative orientation of the letters. Teaching. Mongols learned their script as a syllabary, dividing the syllables into 12 different classes, based on the final phonemes of the syllables, all of which ended in vowels. The Manchus followed the same syllabic method when learning Manchu script, also with syllables divided into 12 different classes based on the final phonemes of the syllables. Some Westerners learn the script in an alphabetic manner instead. Manchus learned their script like a syllabary, while Westerners treated it like an alphabet. The Manchus learned their script as a syllabary, with syllables divided into 12 different classes based on the final phonemes of the syllables. Today, the opinion on whether it is alphabet or syllabic in nature is still split between different experts. In China, it is considered syllabic and Manchu is still taught in this manner. The alphabetic approach is used mainly by foreigners who want to learn the language. Studying Manchu script as a syllabary takes a longer time. The Manchus, like the Mongolians, taught their script as a syllabary and divided them into 12 classes of syllables, based on the ending phoneme of each syllable. Foreigners, on the other hand, learn Manchu script like an alphabet. Despite the alphabetic nature of its script, Manchu was not taught phoneme by phoneme per letter like Western languages are. Rather, Manchu children were taught to memorize all the syllables in the Manchu language separately as they learned to write, like Chinese characters. Manchus, when learning, instead of saying I, A, La, I, O, Lo, and Si, were taught at once to say La, Lo, and Si. Many more syllables than are contained in their syllabary might have been formed with their letters, but they were not accustomed to arrange them otherwise than as they there stand. They made, for instance, no such use of the consonants I, M, N, and R, as Westerners do when they called them liquid. Hence, if the Manchu letters S, M, A, R, T, be joined in that order as a Manchu would not able to pronounce them as English-speaking people pronounce the word smart. Manchu children were taught the language via the syllabic method. Names. The traditional Mongolian script is known by a wide variety of names. Due to its shape like Uyghur script, it became known as the Uyghur Mongol script. During the Communist era, when Cyrillic became the official script for the Mongolian language, the traditional script became known as the Old Mongol script, in contrast to the new script, referring to Cyrillic. The name Old Mongol script stuck, and it is still known as such among the older generation, who didn't receive education in the new script. Letters. Letters have different forms depending on their position in a word: initial, medial, or final. In some cases, additional graphic variants are selected for visual harmony with the subsequent character. Alphabets. The Mongol script has been the basis of alphabets for several languages. First, after overcoming the Uyghur script Uktis, it was used for Mongolian itself. Clear script in 1648. The Oirat Buddhist monk Zaya Pandita Namkar Jamko created this variation with the goals of bringing the written language closer to the actual pronunciation of Oirat and making it easier to transcribe Tibetan and Sanskrit. The script was used by the Kalmyks of Russia until 1924, when it was replaced by the Cyrillic alphabet. In Xinjiang, China, the Oirat people still use it. Manchu alphabet. The Manchu alphabet was developed from the Mongolian script in the early 17th century to write the Manchu language. A variant is still used to write xibe. It is also used for door. Its folded variant may, for example, be found on Chinese king seals. Vijender Alphabet. Another alphabet, sometimes called Vijendra or Vahintara, was created in 1905 by the Buryat monk Ajahn Dorjeev. It was also meant to reduce ambiguity, and to support the Russian language in addition to Mongolian. The most significant change, however, was the elimination of the positional shape variations. All letters were based on the medial variant of the original Mongol alphabet. Fewer than a dozen books were printed using it. Evenki alphabet. The Qing dynasty Qianlong Emperor erroneously identified the Khitan people and their language with the Solons, leading him to use the Solon language to correct Chinese character transcriptions of Khitan names in the history of Liao in his Imperial Liao Jin Yuan 3 Histories National Language Explanation Project. The Evenki words were written in the Manchu script in this work. In the 1980s, an experimental alphabet for Evenki was created. Additional characters. Gallic Characters. In 1587, the translator and scholar Ushkush created the Gallic alphabet, inspired by the third Dalai Lama, Sonam Gyatso. It primarily added extra characters for transcribing Tibetan and Sanskrit terms when translating religious texts, and later also from Chinese. Some of those characters are still in use today for writing foreign names. Unicode. Mongolian script was added to the Unicode standard in September 1999 with the release of version 3.0. Block. The Unicode block for Mongolian is U+1800 U+18AF. It includes letters, digits and various punctuation marks for Hudam Mongolian, Todo Mongolian, Xibe, Manchu proper, and Ali-Gali, as well as extensions for transcribing Sanskrit and Tibetan. Issues. Although the Mongolian script has been defined in Unicode since 1999, there was no support for Unicode Mongolian from the major vendors until the release of the Windows Vista operating system in 2007, and so Unicode Mongolian is not yet widely used. In China, legacy encodings such as the private use areas Unicode mappings and GB 18030 mappings of the Mengs of times are more commonly used than Unicode for writing web pages and electronic documents in Mongolian. The inclusion of a Unicode Mongolian font in keyboard layout in Windows Vista has meant that Unicode Mongolian is now gradually becoming more popular, but the complexity of the Unicode Mongolian encoding model and the lack of a clear definition for the use variation selectors are still barriers to its widespread adoption, as is the lack of support for inline vertical display. As of 2015, there are no fonts that successfully display all of Mongolian correctly when written in Unicode. A report published in 2011 revealed many shortcomings with automatic rendering in all three Unicode Mongolian fonts the authors surveyed, including Microsoft's Mongolian BT. Furthermore, Mongolian language support has suffered from buggy implementations. The initial version of Microsoft's Mongolian BT font was, in the supplier's own words, almost unusable. And as of 2011 there remain some serious bugs with the rendering of suffixes in Mozilla Firefox. Till now it still contains several mistakes while rendering Mongolian that are widely thought as working correctly by design. Other fonts, such as Monotype's Mongol USUG and Attribution Chimex Mongolian script, suffer even more serious bugs. In January 2013, Microsoft released several OpenType Mongolian fonts, delivered with its Microsoft Mongolian IME 2012. These fonts strictly follow Unicode standard, i.e., Bishuk is no longer realized as B+I+CH+I+G+FVS2, but B+I+CH+I+G, which is not done by Microsoft and found as Mongolian BT. Monotype's Mongol USUG, or Attribution Chimex Mongolian script. However, due to the impact of Mongolian BT, many still use the Microsoft-defined incorrect realization B+I+CH+I+G+FVS2, which results in an incorrect rendering incorrectly designed fonts like Menk Kagantig.